Hello ladies and gentlemen, welcome to a new video, and today is a great day because Sonic Frontiers is releasing tomorrow, and I got to play it early. So in today's video, I'm basically going to be giving my thoughts about the game, my first impressions, because I just beat the game a few hours ago, and it was a blast. The game was fun from beginning to end, and we're going to get into all of that in today's video, but I just want to clarify that there are no spoilers in this video, so you're not going to get spoiled from any of the story or any of the gameplay surprises by watching this. This is just my thoughts, and you can maybe use this as your reasoning to buy the game or not. Which, by the way, if you could not tell from the title of the video or how happy I am right now, this game was great. It was really good. This was surprisingly good. I went into this game with very low expectations, similar to Sonic Movie 2, where I went into that movie with pretty much not expecting anything. I was expecting something very average that would be fun to watch, but nothing crazy. Same thing happened here with Sonic Frontiers. I thought it was just gonna be a 7 out of 10, maybe a low 8 out of 10 kinda going on there, but no. This game blew it out of the water for me. Now, for most people, this will probably be a 7 or 8 out of 10, and, you know, that's a fair rating, but for me, the game feels like a 9 out of 10, maybe even a 10 out of 10 if I ignore the one flaw that I really have an issue with when it comes to this game. I just loved this game, and now keep in mind that I am going through the honeymoon phase right now, so obviously I'm going to be loving the game and thinking it's like the best thing ever because I just got done playing it and it happened to be a really good Sonic game, so obviously the feelings are going to be much more exaggerated right now. So my opinion might lessen over time as I get to play the game more and maybe replay it a few times. Maybe I'll think a little bit differently about the game, but as of right now, I loved what I played. After I got done and I saw the credits, I was thinking, I'm like, the last time I felt like this with a Sonic game was when I played through Sonic Unleashed for the first time. And if you guys don't know, that is my favorite Sonic game of all time. It might even be my favorite video game of all time. That feeling is something I can never get back with Sonic Frontiers, and it was a very special moment, and man, I'm happy that I'm able to have special moments like this with Sonic. I haven't had a moment like this with Sonic for so long. It was such a beautiful moment. I don't know how to describe it. And that's really what I want to emphasize here. If you are a massive fan of the Sonic Adventure games, or Sonic Unleashed, or any of the other Dark Age games, I think you're going to love Sonic Frontiers. To me, Sonic Frontiers feels like what Sonic Mania was, but for the fans of the 3D Sonic games. And when I say that, I'm not saying that it's on the quality of Sonic Mania, because that's very subjective. What I'm referring to is the fact that Sonic Frontiers feels like it's acknowledging a part of the Sonic community that has been shunned for years, for just so long. Everything that we have pretty much been complaining about for years is getting fixed right now. We have a more serious tone story, we have references to previous games, and I can't tell you the rest until you play the game, but there are so many special moments and surprises in this game that, as a Dark Age fan or Adventure fan, you're going to lose your mind at. This is a Sonic game made for you guys. You, the Dark Age fans, the Adventure fans, me, you, everyone. This is our game. Now, all of that is cool, but I know what you guys want to hear about. You want to hear about the game, so let's start talking about my first impressions of the gameplay with the open zone, cyberspace bosses, and all that. Starting with the open zone, this was the best part about the game. Admittedly, while the open zone looked fun from the trailers, I was never captured by it. I was never really hyped by it because, to be honest, from looking at gameplay, it just looked like they slapped a bunch of grind rails and springs everywhere that was just filled to the brim with automation and called it a day. And now, that's not completely wrong. A lot of the platforming in the open zone is automated, pretty much most of it. But not only is it not that bad, but it also will not matter in the grand scheme of things, because when you're in the flow of the game, you're not thinking about the automation. So the main objective of the game is pretty much a collectathon. Think about Sonic Frontiers as Mario Odyssey, but Sonic the Hedgehog's take on it. To progress through the game, you have to collect a bunch of collectibles that are specific to various characters from the game. Without getting into any spoilers, the main 3 characters that you do get collectibles for are Tails, Amy, and Knuckles. Basically, when you get these collectibles, it allows you to start up cutscenes with Amy, Knuckles, or Tails, which basically progresses through the story, and sometimes it results in a nice cool minigame that gives you a Chaos Emerald. Getting these collectibles are not optional from what I can tell, because you have to do these missions to get the Chaos Emerald, so yeah, you do have to play this game like a collectathon a little bit. So if you don't like collectathons, you might as well just get out of here. I, for one, love collectathons, and I love Mario Odyssey, so Sonic Frontiers is awesome. Now, when you go to get these collectibles, you have to find them from the platforming segments that are pretty much placed all throughout the open zone. This is where we get back to the automated gameplay that I was talking about before. Yes, the platforming is very automated, but again, it's not that bad. Let me explain. It's not that bad for 3 reasons. Number 1, it's not fully automated. There are a lot of segments where you do have to react to upcoming obstacles and such, and actually have to do a bit of platforming. Granted, it's not very hard platforming, but you get the deal. It's not just jumping on a rail and getting a collectible. Second of all, you can manipulate the automation. Like, you can genuinely skip parts of the automation to get through the platforming segments faster by either using the air dash to outright skip sections of the platforming, or just using the landscape around the platforms to jump all the way to the end of the platforming segment to get your collectible. Now, it's not as cool as the skips in, say, Sonic Adventure, where you can just skip outright parts of the level, but you can get a little creative on how you skip the automated platforming segments. It's not just jumping on a rail. And third, you're not even going to care about it, because once you get done with a platforming segment, you already forgot about it and you're moving on to the next objective. I really want to emphasize this. There is so much to do in the open zone. They just put so many activities everywhere. So when you're done with the platforming segment, you don't have time to process, oh wait, that was just automation. No, you're like looking at another platforming segment or a big fishing minigame or whatever, an enemy or a boss to fight, and you're already running to that objective. You forgot about what you just did. And that is the thing about Sonic Frontiers. That is what is so addicting about the game. You know what your main objective is. You're supposed to find a certain amount of collectibles and vault keys, which we'll get into in a minute, to progress through the rest of the story and the game. But how you go about finding the collectibles, how you go about finding the vault keys, portal gears, and all that is completely up to you. You build your own experience here. Essentially what the game does is it slaps you into a world with a bunch of activities and basically says, hey, go do whatever you want, whatever entertains you the most, whatever you're most curious about, go ahead and interact with the activity. That is what Sonic Frontiers is, doing a bunch of little activities in an open zone to progress through the rest of the game. It is very similar to Super Mario Odyssey in that regard, and in my opinion, it's just as satisfying as Super Mario Odyssey. Everything is up to the player on how he gets the collectibles, but that's not the only thing he needs to get. He needs to get vault keys as well, which he needs to get Chaos Emeralds. You can get half of the Chaos Emeralds from Sonic's friends missions from Tails, Knuckles, or Amy, and you get the other half by finding vault keys, to which you can take to a Chaos Emerald Shrine and get a Chaos Emerald. But how exactly do you get vault keys? Well, there are a variety of ways. You can find vault keys just laying down in the open zone, and sometimes enemies drop them. I'm pretty sure there's other ways to get vault keys. I think you can get them from the Big Fishing minigame. Don't quote me on that, I didn't spend too much time with Big's Fishing. I only spent a little bit of time at the end of the game, and that's a reason I will get into in my review. By the way, Big's Fishing minigame is awesome. I love that part of the game. They really did not need to add that in the game, but they did, and they deserve all the praise for it. It's actually kind of fun and relaxing. I recommend you guys check it out. But the main way to get vault keys is from cyberspace, which you can enter cyberspace by killing mini-bosses that are spread out in the open zone, to which they will drop a portal gear, which allows you to open the portal to cyberspace. You can find portals to cyberspace just spread out all throughout the open zone, so they are plentiful, you will find them, and they are the best way to get vault keys. And that is because when you play a cyberspace stage, it gives you 4 missions, and if you complete all 4, you get 4 vault keys from one cyberspace stage. So if you want to get vault keys really fast, you pretty much have to go to cyberspace, which I think is a little bit sussy. And I say that because I'm not the biggest fan of cyberspace. Now, obviously we all know that cyberspace reuses old level aesthetics such as Green Hill Zone, Chemical Plant, Sky Sanctuary. It does have one original aesthetic that is a city highway level thing. That looks cool, but most of it is just reused level aesthetics. It also reuses level design from previous Sonic games, which is a little disappointing, I guess. But I've already talked about that in so many previous videos. Let's talk about what cyberspace is in this game. Now look, cyberspace could have been really good, could have been really fun to play, but they messed it up because for some reason, when you enter cyberspace, the physics and the controls just change completely, and it's not in a good way. The physics are not good in cyberspace. The air dash in cyberspace sucks, and the acceleration sucks. Cyberspace just controls so wrong. I don't know how to describe it, but there's been so many deaths I've had in cyberspace where it doesn't even feel like my fault. It honestly just feels like I'm battling with the controls constantly in cyberspace, and that's my biggest issue with cyberspace. The reason why I say cyberspace could have been good, despite me hating it in previous videos, is because later on in the game, cyberspace becomes good. Like, the reused level design starts getting used in very creative ways, and it starts to actually be kind of fun, but the controls still ruin it. I don't know why they changed the controls for cyberspace. They should not have done that. And I know it sounds like I'm being overly negative about cyberspace, but I want to clarify this right now. Cyberspace is fun to an extent. It's not all just terrible doom and gloom. Like, genuinely, the later cyberspace levels in the game look really fun, but the controls just hold it down so much. I feel like if cyberspace had the open zone controls, I would probably be praising it right now. So please, somebody, when this game releases, we need a mod for open zone controls to be in cyberspace, because I genuinely think that would fix cyberspace for me. There's some levels in cyberspace that I know will slap with the open zone controls. So please, somebody out there, if you have modding experience, just port over the controls. That is all I need. Also, I'm not going to show which levels I'm talking about that are really good, because I want you guys to see them for yourself. Because it's pretty noticeable when cyberspace levels start improving a lot more. And I want to leave that experience all up to you guys. But regardless, for the first 2 islands, I just noticed myself getting tired of playing cyberspace. I felt like cyberspace was stopping me from playing the gameplay that I really liked, which was the open zone gameplay. I really dreaded going into cyberspace to get vault keys because it just wasn't that fun. But later on in the game, I did actually start getting excited to play cyberspace levels. It's hard to explain, but I actually got excited to play a cyberspace level. I can't believe I'm saying this, but that's honestly what happened. At the end of the game, the cyberspace levels kind of slapped. That's all I'm saying. So for all those players who really do not want to play cyberspace, you don't have to. You're just gonna have to work harder for the vault keys. And honestly, I think you should just do cyberspace regardless, because I'm telling you, it gets better later on. Just stick with it. It will pay off, I promise you. Besides, cyberspace gives you a reason to fight the mini-bosses in the open zone, and that is a lot of fun. The mini-bosses in the open zone is really where your combat system shines in Sonic Frontiers. Now, the combat system was something I was really interested in, because I couldn't tell if it was good or bad until I got my hands on it. I didn't know if it was going to be button mashy in a bad way or in a good way, and it's safe to say that combat system is awesome in this game. It beats Sonic Unleashed. The combos are not super complicated to pull off. They're actually very simple, so anybody who doesn't have a whole lot of experience with like beat 'em ups, you can still have a great time with the combat system in this game. It's not too challenging. Now, that's not the case for the entire game. For the first 2 islands, that's where you get to really experiment your combat system on the mini-bosses, but later on in the game, the mini-bosses aren't super challenging, but they do get harder. So, yes, to answer some of your guys' questions, yes, the game does get more challenging over time. It's not like really hard, you're not going to be dying like in Cuphead, but it does get challenging. There are some mini bosses and enemies later on in the game where you actually do have to use your brain to kill and survive against, which, as you know, me, who loves this combat system and getting these combos right and unlocking new moves and fighting enemies, I love the challenging enemies near the end of the game. It's so good, dude. Again, it's not too hard, it's not Cuphead level, but you actually do have to use your combat system competently. It's fun. Oh yeah, and the soundtrack when you're fighting enemies and mini-bosses is great. And in general, the soundtrack for this entire game is great. There's a lot of music in this game that I'm going to be putting in my Spotify playlist. Like, it is really good. Now, I'm not going to let you listen to the soundtrack because some of the songs, I feel like it's best that you guys experience it on your own because you guys should just do it by yourself, alright? Trust me. The soundtrack is better when you listen to it in-game instead of some random first impressions video, so go do that. Now, we only have one more thing to touch up on, and that is the story. As many of you guys know, Ian Flynn is writing the dialogue for this story, so it should be interesting, right? Well, it is interesting. It's a very well-made story. It's definitely one of the best Sonic stories ever. Alright? It's that good. It's really good. I know that we have been wanting a good story for a very long time. The meta era has not been kind to us. I can assure you guys that this game has it covered. This game knows what you want when it comes to a Sonic story, and it's going to give that to you. It has a much more serious tone story, and there's less of those really annoying out-of-place jokes that don't really add much to the dialogue. Now, without getting too much into it, and I'm not going to spoil anything in this video, there are issues with the story. There are things that I'm not a big fan of, but they're not massive issues. It's nothing that will ruin the game or anything like that. But to answer the question if it's the best Sonic story, well, I think it tops Sonic Adventure 1 and 2 because, well, the cutscenes aren't bad, and also there's less plot holes and less weird voice acting. It's all good here in Sonic Frontiers. Now, in my opinion, I felt that the best Sonic stories were Sonic Unleashed and Sonic and the Black Knight because both of those games had great cutscenes, great voice acting, had great writing, and it was not too complicated. Straight to the point, not many plot holes, you know, it's a well-made story, right? But is Sonic Frontiers better than Black Knight and Sonic Unleashed's story? Well, kind of in a weird way. Sonic Frontiers has higher highs. There's a lot of moments in this game where you're just gonna be wowed by what happens in the story. But I feel like Sonic Unleashed and Black Knight were consistently better. Those games were a lot more consistent in its story, but at the cost of not having the high highs of Sonic Frontiers. When Sonic Frontiers' story is at its peak, it is the best Sonic story. There's just some things that I can't really get behind when it comes to Sonic Frontiers' story, which I will be talking about in my in-depth review that will be releasing soon. I just need time before I make that review because I really want to make sure that I have a good understanding of this game before I go and evaluate it. So I'm going to give myself a week of writing down thoughts and processing the game before I go and make the review and give it to you guys. So just give me some time. I want to make sure that I do this game justice. Anyways, with that said, that's my thoughts. I had a blast with Sonic Frontiers. For me right now, it's definitely a top 5 Sonic game. I might just be in the honeymoon phase, but I loved this game. This game was awesome. This is a W, guys. This is a win for us. We have finally, after so long, we are finally here. We finally have another 3D Sonic game that we can recommend to anybody who is not a Sonic fan, and I'm so happy that this day has finally come. I'm going to be streaming Sonic Frontiers later in the week. I love this game. I'm having a blast, man. We won, boys. We won. We actually won. If you're new here, make sure to like, comment, favorite, subscribe. Hit that bell if you want to be notified of my future Sonic Frontiers content. I'm so happy. Anyways, I love you guys. Peace out. My channel members are the Nice Guy Here 567, Snicks, ArcherXYZ, Reese, JaneXV, Ethan K78, Giannian Ring, Psychman 715, Sonic Hub, Thomas Onerai, Chip Chop Chop, Scape, The Squeaker Nerd, Super Shax, Boom, Sonic Extreme, and Super Saiyan Sonic. Thank you all for supporting the channel. Make sure to click one of the in-card screen videos here. Make sure to play Sonic Frontiers. Love you guys. Peace out.